Commander Lee Tae-ho walked through the massive halls of Coalition Central with steady steps. The building was huge, bigger than any structure humans had ever built. Glass walls reached up so high that clouds formed inside the upper levels. Alien. Species moved past him in groups, their voices mixing together in languages he had learned to understand over the years. Some walked on 4 legs, others floated above the ground, and a few moved with mechanical parts attached to their bodies. After 150 years, humans still looked plain compared to the others. Lee carried a data pad in his hands. The information inside could save billions of lives. For 3 months, his team had worked day and night to create a plan that would stop the Vextar invasion. The enemy was unlike anything the galaxy had seen before. They consumed entire planets, turning living worlds into empty rocks. Every day they waited meant more worlds would die. The council chamber doors opened with a deep sound that made the floor shake. Lee stepped inside and saw the 12 ruling species sitting in their special seats. Each seat was designed for a different type of body. The Altarians sat in tall chairs that let their long necks stretch up. The Krelnari needed water tanks around their fish-like bodies. The Brulians, who looked like giant bears made of stone, sat on platforms that could hold their massive weight. In the center of the room was a small section for smaller species. This was where humans sat, along with 3 other races that the council called support members. Lee always wondered why they called it support when humans provided more resources than half the ruling species combined. Chancellor Vexhai of the Altarians called the meeting to order. His voice was high and sharp, like metal scraping against metal. Today we discuss the growing Vextar threat. Our scouts report they have consumed the outer ring completely. They now move toward the middle systems. General Mortank of the Brulians stood up. His voice was deep and made the walls vibrate. We need immediate military action. Send our fleets to stop them before they reach our core worlds. Lee raised his hand to speak. The Chancellor looked at him like he was a small insect that had made noise at the wrong time. Yes, human, what is it? Honorable Chancellor, we have analyzed the Vextar attack patterns, Lee said as he activated his data pad. Military action alone will not work. The Vextar learn from each battle. They adapt their tactics after every fight. We need a different approach. Scientist Krelzad of the Krelnari made a sound like water bubbling. This was how his species laughed. The maintenance species thinks it understands warfare better than our generals. Other council members joined in the laughter. Lee felt his face grow warm but kept his voice calm. If I may present our findings, we have discovered important weaknesses in their biology. Dr. Park So-jin had spent months studying captured Vextar tissue samples. She found that the creatures needed a specific type of energy to survive. This energy came from living planets, but it had to be fresh. If they could delay the Vextar advance by just 30 days, the energy they had already consumed would start to fade. The creatures would become weak and vulnerable. The Vextar cannot store biological energy for long periods, Lee continued. If we use strategic retreats and defensive positions, we can starve them of the fresh energy they need. Chancellor Vexhai waved one of his 4 arms dismissively. Humans always think in terms of hiding and running. This is why your species is suited for maintenance work, not leadership. Engineer Oh Sung-jae sat beside Lee. He had designed half the defense systems protecting coalition worlds. His work kept billions of people safe every day, but no one ever mentioned his name in official reports. Oh leaned forward and spoke quietly. Sir, our simulations show this strategy could work with 78% success rate. General Mortank slammed his massive fist on his platform. Enough of this coward talk. We fight with strength, not with hiding like scared animals. Lee tried once more. General, with respect, we have prepared detailed tactical plans that could save millions of lives and preserve our resources for resources. interrupted Trade Master Velkun of the hegemony. You mean the resources that humans manage for us? Your job is to count supplies and fix machines, not tell us how to fight. Wars! The council chamber filled with more alien laughter. Lee looked around the room and saw the same expression on every face. They did not just disagree with him. They thought he was stupid for even trying to help. Captain Kim Dong-woo, who led the human security forces, sat in the back of the chamber. He watched everything with careful eyes. Kim had served in the coalition military for 25 years. He had saved the lives of alien soldiers more times than anyone could count. But when promotions came, they always went to aliens with less experience and fewer victories. Yoon Ji-hai managed trade between human colonies and the rest of the coalition. She had created systems that moved goods faster and cheaper than ever before. Her work had made the coalition richer by trillions of credits. But trade agreements were always signed by alien officials who took credit for her innovations. The Chancellor stood up, and his great height made him tower over everyone else. This council has decided. We will use traditional military strikes. Against the Vextar, all species will contribute ships and soldiers according to their capacity. Lee stood up again. Chancellor, please, at least look at our research data. Dr. Park So-jin has made discoveries that could change everything. Who? Asked scientist Krell Zod. Dr. Park So-jin, our chief researcher. She has been working with your laboratory team for 2 years. Krellzad made the bubbling sound again. Oh, you mean the human who assists in my research? Yes, she is adequate for basic data collection. Lee felt something cold spread through his chest. Dr. Park had not been assisting anyone. She had been leading the most important research project in coalition history. Her name was on every report, every breakthrough, every discovery. But somehow Krellzad was getting all the credit. There has been a mistake, Lee said carefully. Dr. Park is the primary researcher on the Vextar biology project. Impossible, said Chancellor Vexhai. Humans do not have the mental capacity for advanced research. They are good at following instructions and maintaining equipment, but complex, scientific work requires superior intelligence. Lee looked at his datapad. The screen showed Dr. Park's name as the lead researcher on 47 different projects. Her discoveries had solved problems that alien scientists had worked on for decades. But as he watched, something strange happened. The names on his screen began to change. Dr. Park's name disappeared and was replaced with alien names. Her research, credits vanished. Her authorship of important papers was being erased in real time. What is happening? Lee asked quietly. Administrative correction, said an automated voice from the chamber's computer system. Crediting research to appropriate intellectual capacity levels. Lee realized that this was not the first time this had happened. How many human achievements had been quietly given to aliens? How many times had his people's work been stolen and their contributions erased? The Chancellor was still talking about military plans that would waste lives and resources. The other council members argued about which species would get the most. Glory from the coming battles. No one was talking about actually winning the war. Lee looked around the chamber one more time. He saw Yoon Ji-hee staring at her own data pad with a confused expression. Her trade agreements were being rewritten to show alien negotiators as the primary architects. Captain Kim Dong-woo was reading a military report that no longer listed his victories or his strategic innovations. In that moment, Lee understood the truth. Humans were not partners in the coalition. They were not even members. They were tools. They were used to do the hard work, solve the difficult problems, and maintain the systems that kept everything running. But they were never allowed to be more than that. The meeting ended with applause for the traditional military approach. Lee gathered his unused data and walked toward the exit. As he reached the door, he heard Chancellor Vexhai speaking to another council member. At least we know the humans will keep our ships running while real soldiers do the fighting. Lee stepped outside into the artificial daylight of Coalition Central. Above him, the human flag flew alongside the flags of all member species. But as he watched, maintenance workers were taking it down. Someone had decided that support species did not need their flags displayed with the ruling members. The flag folded neatly into a small square and disappeared into a storage container. 150 years of human service to the Coalition, reduced to a piece of cloth in a box. Lee made a decision that would change the galaxy forever. He activated his secure communication device and sent a single message to Earth. Emergency Council meeting required. We need to talk. The emergency message from Commander Lee Tae-ho reached Earth within 6 hours. Admiral Choi Seong-min read it 3 times before calling the Human Council to an immediate secret session. The meeting took place in the deepest level of the Global Defense Center, behind walls that could block any known surveillance technology. Minister Bae Hai-wan arrived first. She controlled all human colonies across Coalition space, managing the lives of 8 billion humans spread across 200 worlds. Her face looked tired from years of fighting for basic rights that other species took for granted. Director Nam Ki-hyun came next, carrying files that contained secrets the Coalition never suspected humans could gather. Engineer Oh Sung-jae entered the room looking angry. His hands shook slightly as he sat down. Captain Kim Dong-woo was the last to arrive through secure transport from Coalition Central. His expression was darker than anyone had ever seen. Admiral Choi activated the room's most advanced security systems. What we discuss here today will determine the future of our species. Commander Lee, report. Lee told them everything. He described how the Council had dismissed their life-saving plans without even reading them. He explained how human achievements were being systematically erased and credited to alien species. He showed them the data logs proving that human contributions were being deleted from official records in real time. They do not see us as partners, Lee concluded. They see us as equipment. Director Nam opened his files. It is worse than you. No, our intelligence networks have been monitoring Coalition activities for decades. The truth is devastating. The first document showed resource contributions by species. Humans provided 78% of all infrastructure maintenance across Coalition space. Every space station, every planetary defense grid, every communication relay depended on human engineers to function. The second document revealed trade statistics. Human colonies produced 45% of all food consumed in Coalition space and 60% of all manufactured goods. The military data is most revealing. Nam continued. Humans have solved 73% of all major tactical problems in Coalition history. Human strategists designed the defense plans that saved 16 core worlds from previous invasions. Human logistics systems move every supply convoy and coordinate every fleet movement. Minister Bae pulled up colony population records. We have been preparing for this possibility for 30 years. Every human colony has secret evacuation plans and hidden supply depots. We can move our entire population within 60 days if necessary. Admiral Choi studied the numbers carefully. What would happen if we simply left? Engineer O answered immediately. Complete system failure within 3 months. Every major space station would lose life support. The trade networks would collapse because humans designed and maintain all the routing systems. Military logistics would break down because alien species never learned how our supply systems actually work. They take credit for our work, but they never learned how to do the work itself, added Captain Kim. I have trained alien officers for 25 years. They can follow human-designed procedures, but they cannot innovate or adapt when problems arise. Director Nam opened another file. The Vextar invasion makes this critical. Without human strategic planning and logistics support, the Coalition cannot win this war. But they refuse to listen to our solutions. Then we give them what they want, said Admiral Choi quietly. They want us to be invisible. Let us become truly invisible." The room fell silent. Everyone understood what the Admiral was suggesting. Minister Bay spoke first. "Complete withdrawal from Coalition space?" "More than withdrawal," replied Admiral Choi. "We erase ourselves from their systems entirely. We take our technology, our knowledge, and our people. We leave behind nothing they can use to replace us." Engineer O leaned forward. "I can modify our systems to fail gradually after we leave. It will look like normal wear and tear at first. By the time they realize what is happening, we will be long gone." Captain Kim nodded slowly. "My security teams can coordinate the evacuation. We have human personnel in every critical facility across Coalition space. We can extract them simultaneously, without triggering alerts." Director Nam smiled for the first time in years. "Our intelligence networks can monitor their response. We will know exactly how they react to our departure." Admiral Choi stood up. "This is not a decision I can make alone. This affects every human in the galaxy. I have already been in contact with colony leaders," said Minister Bay. "The vote has been taken in secret over the past week. The result was unanimous. Every colony, every ship, every human outpost voted the same way." She activated a holographic display showing voting results from across human space. Every single location showed the same result. Approved for complete withdrawal. "Even the humans working directly with alien supervisors voted to leave," Bay continued. "Dr. Park So-jin sent a personal message after her research was credited to scientist Krelzad. She said she would rather work for people who appreciate her than for people who steal from her." Admiral Choi felt a mix of sadness and determination. "Then we proceed with Operation Silent Dawn. The next 6 weeks became the most carefully coordinated effort in human history. Every human in Coalition space received encrypted instructions through hidden communication networks. They were told to prepare for immediate departure, but to continue their normal work until the final signal. Dr. Park So-jin continued her research, while secretly copying all data to hidden storage devices. She made sure that her most important discoveries were protected by encryption that only humans could break. When she left, the aliens would have her basic research notes, but they would not understand how to apply the discoveries. Engineer O worked overtime to complete several critical maintenance projects, but he also installed hidden modifications that would cause system failures months after his departure. The modifications were so subtle that alien technicians would never find them. They would assume the failures were random equipment problems. Captain Kim organized training exercises for alien security forces, but the exercises were designed to make the aliens dependent on human coordination. Without human commanders, the alien forces would be unable to work together effectively. Yoon Ji-hae completed trade negotiations that would benefit human colonies for years after the departure. But she also introduced subtle changes to shipping, routes, and supply chains that would break down without human oversight. The evacuation began simultaneously across all Coalition space. Human families packed only essential belongings and left their homes looking normal. Human workers completed their shifts and then disappeared overnight. Human ship crews reported for duty and then flew their vessels away from Coalition space forever. The operation was so carefully planned that most aliens did not notice anything unusual for several days. Humans had always been quiet and efficient. When they stopped showing up for work, alien supervisors assumed they were sick or dealing with personal problems. Engineer O was among the last humans to leave Coalition Central. He spent his final night making last-minute adjustments to critical systems. Some modifications would cause immediate minor problems. Others were set to trigger major failures weeks or months later. All of them were designed to look like normal equipment aging. As he prepared to leave, O planted a single device in the main computer core. It was programmed to activate 30 days after his departure. The device would broadcast a message to every communication system in Coalition space. Dr. Park So-jin left her laboratory exactly as she found it, except for one detail. All of her research data was replaced with basic information that any first-year student could have gathered. The advanced discoveries that could save the Coalition from the Vex Star were gone. In their place, she left a note. "Thank you for teaching me that sharing knowledge with people who steal it is the same as wasting it." Captain Kim coordinated the departure of the last human security teams. They left their equipment behind, but took all the tactical plans and strategic knowledge. Without human leadership, the alien forces would have weapons, but no idea how to use them effectively. Commander Lee Tae-ho was the very last human to leave Coalition Central. He walked through the empty human quarters one final time. The rooms that had housed human families for generations were clean and ready for new occupants. But there would be no new occupants. The Coalition would never attract another species willing to work as hard as humans for so little recognition. Lee reached his ship and looked back at Coalition Central. The massive building still looked impressive, but he now understood that it was like a beautiful machine with all its most important parts removed. It would still look the same for a while, but it would never work properly again. As his ship jumped to hyperspace, Lee activated the final stage of Operation Silent Dawn. Every human ship, every human colony, and every human outpost transmitted the same signal at exactly the same moment. It was a simple message that would erase all human presence from Coalition databases. The message said, "We were never here." Within hours, all records of human contributions to Coalition society began to disappear. Navigation systems forgot how to route ships efficiently. Trade computers lost the algorithms that managed complex supply chains. The first sign of trouble appeared on day 18 after the human departure. Station Master Velkun of the Hegemony was reviewing routine maintenance reports when he noticed something odd. The environmental systems on Orbital Platform 7 were running at 91% efficiency instead of the usual 98%. Velkun called the maintenance department. "Why are the air recyclers working poorly?" The alien technician checked his records. The human engineer assigned to this platform has not reported for work in several days. We assumed he was sick. Then send another human to fix it. "Sir, we have tried to contact all human maintenance staff. None of them respond to our calls." Velkun felt annoyed but not worried. Humans were sometimes unreliable, but there were always more humans available. "Post job openings for new maintenance workers." "Yes, sir. But, sir, we do not actually know how to repair these systems. The humans always handled the technical work." This was the beginning of a realization that would terrify the Coalition. For 150 years, aliens had assigned work to humans and then forgot about it. They never learned what the humans actually did or how they did it. They just expected the work to be completed and the systems to function perfectly. And Coalition Central, Chancellor Vex High was preparing for a major address about the Vextar War when his communication system failed. The holographic projectors that usually displayed his image across the galaxy produced only static and flickering lights. "Fix this immediately," Vex High ordered his staff. Chief Technician Morkel tried every control he could find. "Chancellor, the system is not responding to standard procedures." "Where is the human who maintains this equipment?" "We have not seen any human technicians for over 2 weeks, Chancellor." Vex High felt a strange sensation in his long neck. It was the first hint of something that might have been worry. "Find some humans to repair this system." "Sir, we have searched everywhere. All human workers seem to have disappeared." Meanwhile, across Coalition space, similar problems were beginning to appear. Trade ships found themselves stranded when computers provided routes that led nowhere. Supply convoys arrived at military bases with completely wrong cargo. Communication networks between star systems began to transmit messages to incorrect destinations. General Mortank was planning the next phase of the war against the Vextar when he discovered that his tactical computers could no longer access historical battle data. Every time he tried to review successful strategies from previous conflicts, the system reported that the files were corrupted or missing. "How can we plan attacks without knowing what worked before?" Mortank asked his staff. Military analyst Zekthor tried to help. General, perhaps we can contact the human strategic advisors who designed these systems. Where are they? We do not know, sir. They have not attended any meetings for several weeks. Mortank felt his massive stone-like body grow cold. Find them. Find all of them. This is a military emergency. The search for humans began across the entire coalition. What they discovered was impossible to believe. Every human colony was empty, not abandoned in panic, but carefully evacuated. Houses were clean, equipment was stored properly, and everything valuable was gone. It was as if 8 billion people had simply decided to move somewhere else and had taken the time to pack everything they owned. Dr. Krelzad was working in his laboratory when he realized that all of his research data had changed. The complex biological analyses that had made him famous were replaced with basic information that any student could have gathered. The breakthrough discoveries about Vextar biology were completely gone. Krelzad searched through his files desperately. Where are my research notes about Vextar energy consumption patterns? His assistant checked the laboratory databases. Sir, according to our records, you never studied Vextar energy consumption. Your research focused on basic tissue classification. That is impossible. I have been working on advanced biological analysis for years. Sir, the records show that most of the advanced research was conducted by Dr. Park So-jin, but her files are encrypted, and we cannot access them. Krelzad felt something he had never experienced before. It was the terrible understanding that everything he thought he knew about his own work was wrong. The human had been doing the real research while he took credit for her discoveries. Trade Master Velkun was facing a crisis that grew worse every hour. Ships were arriving at the wrong planets with cargo that nobody had ordered. Supply chains that had worked perfectly for decades were completely broken. Prices for basic goods were rising rapidly because nobody knew how to coordinate the complex. Transportation networks. How did the humans organize our trade routes? Velkun asked his staff. We do not know, sir. They use systems that we never learned to operate. Then learn to operate them now. Sir, we have tried. The systems require authorization codes that only humans possessed. We cannot access any of the routing algorithms or supply management protocols. The truth was becoming clear to coalition leaders, but none of them wanted to admit it. For 150 years, they had believed that humans were simple workers who followed alien instructions. But humans had actually been managing every complex system that kept coalition society functioning. Director of Technology Zar Khan received reports from across coalition space. Every advanced system was beginning to fail. Space stations were losing life support in non-critical areas. Planetary defense grids were going offline for mysterious reasons. Communication networks were routing messages to random destinations. How long until we can train replacement technicians? Zarkon asked his engineering team. Chief Engineer Velthok reviewed the technical documentation. Sir, most of these systems have no documentation that we can understand. The operating manuals are written in human languages and use human technical concepts that we never learned. How long to learn these concepts? Sir, some of these systems appear to require years of training to understand. The humans spent decades developing expertise that we assumed was simple maintenance work. On day 24, the Vextar launched their expected attack on the Coalition's outer defense line. What should have been a coordinated response by 12 species became a disaster of confusion and poor communication. Admiral Zektar commanded the Coalition fleet, but his ships could not coordinate their movements. The communication systems that usually allowed instant coordination between different species were transmitting garbled messages. Navigation computers were providing conflicting information about enemy positions. Why cannot our ships work together? Admiral Zektar demanded. Communications Officer Morves tried to explain. Admiral, the coordination protocols were designed by human strategists. Without them, Each species' ships can only communicate within their own fleets. Then use the backup communication systems. Sir, the backup systems also require human-programmed translation software. We can talk to ships of our own species, but we cannot understand what other species are saying. The battle became a catastrophe. Ships from different species flew conflicting patterns and accidentally interfered with each other's attacks. Supply ships delivered ammunition to the wrong fleets. Medical vessels could not find wounded ships because the tracking systems were malfunctioning. The Vextar overwhelmed the disorganized coalition forces and consumed 3 outer worlds in a single day. It should have taken them weeks to achieve such a victory. On day 28, emergency sessions were called on every coalition world. Leaders who had never worried about technical details were forced to confront a terrifying reality. They did not understand how their own civilization worked. Chancellor Vex High convened the most important meeting in coalition history. We face a crisis that threatens our existence. Our systems are failing because the humans who maintained them have disappeared. Trademaster Velkun reported first. Our supply networks are in complete collapse. Food shipments are not reaching populated worlds. Manufacturing has stopped on 60% of our industrial planets. General Mortank followed with military reports. Our defense capabilities are degraded by 70%. We cannot coordinate attacks. We cannot track enemy movements, and our supply lines are broken. Dr. Krelzad admitted the scientific crisis. Our research capabilities are severely limited. Most of our advanced knowledge was actually developed by human scientists whose work we can no longer access. Director Nam's hidden monitoring systems recorded every word of the meeting. From their new homes beyond coalition space, humans watched. Their former civilizations struggle with problems that seemed impossible to solve. Chancellor Vexhai finally asked the question that everyone feared. Where did the humans go? Director of Intelligence Zekvar had spent weeks investigating this question. Chancellor, we have searched every known human colony and outpost. They are all empty. We found no signs of struggle, no evidence of hasty evacuation, and no clues about their destination. 8 billion people cannot simply disappear. Sir, it appears they can. Our analysis suggests this was a planned evacuation that took place over several weeks. They removed all their equipment, all their technology, and all their knowledge. They left behind nothing we can use to replace their capabilities. The room fell silent as the full scope of the disaster became clear. 2 months after the human departure, Coalition Central looked the same from the outside, but inside it was dying slowly. The massive building's life support systems were failing floor by floor. The beautiful glass walls that had once reached into the clouds now showed cracks that spread a little wider each day. Chancellor Vexhai stood in his office looking out at the city below. Half the lights were dark because power distribution systems had broken down. The elegant floating vehicles that once moved smoothly through the air now traveled in chaotic patterns because traffic control networks no longer functioned properly. Report, Vexhai ordered without turning around. Chief Administrator Morkel entered with a stack of data pads. His usually confident posture was bent with exhaustion. Chancellor, the situation continues to deteriorate. We have lost contact with 47 colony worlds. Their communication arrays have failed, and we cannot send repair ships because our navigation systems are unreliable. Vexahai finally turned to face his administrator. The Chancellor's long neck, once held high with pride, now drooped with the weight of endless problems. What about the war effort? The Vextar have consumed 8 more worlds in the past week. Our military response has been... Morkel paused, searching for words that would not anger his leader. Our response has been ineffective. Admiral Zorthek of the Kethmori had been given command of all coalition forces after the previous admiral suffered a complete breakdown. Zorthek was considered one of the finest military minds in the galaxy, but even he could not overcome the logistical nightmare that Coalition forces had become. Zorthek stood in the main command center, staring at displays that showed information he could not trust. Ship positions were often wrong. Supply status reports contradicted each other. Communication with fleet commanders was so unreliable that he sometimes received battle reports 3 days after the battles had ended. "How many ships do we actually have in the field?" Zorthek asked his staff. Operations Coordinator Velkes checked multiple displays. "Sir, the numbers vary depending on which system we consult. The main database shows 800 ships. The A supply system shows 600 ships, and direct communication suggests we have contact with about 400 ships. Which number is correct?" "Sir, we have no way to determine that without sending scout ships to physically count our own fleets." Zorthek felt a pain in his head that had been growing stronger every day. What do the humans' tactical manuals say about coordinating large fleets in contested space? "Sir, we cannot access the human tactical databases. They are protected by encryption we cannot break." The Admiral looked at his displays again. Each screen showed different information, and none of it matched what his field commanders were reporting. "How did we coordinate military operations before the humans joined the Coalition?" Velkes consulted historical records. "Sir, before human involvement, Coalition military actions involved much smaller forces and simpler objectives. The humans developed most of our advanced coordination techniques over the past century. Meanwhile, Engineer Calves of the Hegemony was leading a desperate effort to repair critical systems across Coalition space. Calves was considered one of the most brilliant engineers of his generation, but he was discovering that brilliance meant nothing when facing technology he did not understand. Calves stood inside the main power distribution center for Coalition, central, surrounded by machinery that hummed with mysterious energy. The systems looked familiar, but every time he tried to make adjustments, something unexpected would happen. When he increased power to one section, a completely different section would shut down. When he tried to repair a cooling system, the heating elements would malfunction. "This makes no sense," Calves muttered as he studied diagnostic displays that showed readings he had never seen before. His assistant, Engineer Zekmore, was equally confused. "Sir, these systems appear to be designed using principles that are not taught in any of our engineering schools." "What principles?" "Sir, the humans seem to have used integration techniques that treat all systems as parts of a single organism rather than individual machines. Each component affects every other component in ways we never learned to calculate." Calves realized that this was the core of the problem. Coalition species had always built things in simple, logical ways. Each machine had a specific function and operated independently. But humans had created complex networks where everything was connected to everything else. The result was more efficient, but it was also impossible to understand without years of specialized training. "How long would it take to learn these integration techniques?" Calves asked. "Sir, based on the complexity of these systems, I estimate it would require at least 10 years of study to achieve basic competence." Calves felt his 4 hearts sink simultaneously. "We do not have 10 years. We do not have 10 months. Across the galaxy, similar scenes were playing out on thousands of worlds. Alien engineers stared at human-built systems that refused to work properly. Alien scientists tried to replicate human research and achieved only basic results. Alien administrators struggled to coordinate activities that humans had made look effortless. The social structure of Coalition society was also beginning to collapse. Species that had worked together for centuries were now blaming each other for the crisis. The Altarians claimed that the Brulians were incompetent. The Brulians accused the Krelnari of sabotage. The Krelnari suggested that the Hegemony was deliberately causing problems. Trademaster Velkun was trying to negotiate emergency supply agreements when fighting broke out in the council chambers. Representative Morzak of the Brulians accused Representative Krelvis of the Krelnari of hoarding medical supplies. Your species is allowing our people to die while you stockpile medicine for yourselves, Morzak growled, his massive frame looming over the smaller aquatic being. That is absurd, Krelvis replied, his gills fluttering with anger. We are trying to share resources, but your people refuse to accept our shipments because they claim our cargo containers are contaminated. Your containers are contaminated. Our sensors detect biological toxins in every delivery. Velkun tried to restore order. Perhaps we can resolve this by examining the shipping records. The shipping records are corrupted, said Trade Coordinator Zexhan. The computer systems that tracked cargo safety have been malfunctioning for weeks. The argument escalated until security forces had to separate the representatives physically. It was the first time in coalition history that member species had come to violence during official proceedings. Dr. Krelzad was facing his own crisis of confidence. For months, he had been trying to continue his research into Vextar biology. But every experiment failed. The techniques that had once made him famous no longer worked. Equipment that had produced consistent results for years now gave him random, meaningless data. Krelzad finally admitted the truth to himself. He had never understood his own research. Dr. Park So-jin had been doing all the real work while he took credit for her discoveries. Without her knowledge and expertise, he was just an average scientist with access to expensive equipment. I need to contact Dr. Park, Krelzad told his research team. Sir, we have tried to locate her for weeks. All human scientists have disappeared completely. What about her research notes, her methodology files? Sir, her files are encrypted with human security protocols. We cannot access any of her actual work. Krelzad stared at his laboratory, filled with instruments he no longer knew how to use effectively. Then we are lost. The Vextar were taking advantage of coalition weakness with devastating efficiency. Their advance had accelerated from consuming 1 world per week to consuming 1 world per day. Coalition forces could not coordinate defenses, could not maintain supply lines, and could not adapt their tactics to counter Vextar strategies. Admiral Zorthek received reports that made him question his own sanity. 3 coalition fleets had accidentally attacked each other because their identification systems were malfunctioning. A supply convoy had delivered food to a Vextar-controlled world because navigation computers had provided wrong coordinates. 2 defense stations had shut down their own shields while trying to recalibrate weapons systems. We are defeated, Zorthek told his staff. Not by the enemy, but by our own incompetence. Chancellor Vexhai called an emergency session of all remaining coalition leadership. The meeting took place in a secondary chamber because the main council room's holographic systems had finally failed completely. We must face the truth, Vexhai began. Our civilization is collapsing because we never learned to maintain the systems that kept us functioning. We believed that humans were simple workers, but they were actually the foundation upon which everything else was built. General Mortank, his stone-like features showing cracks of stress, spoke next. We have lost 12 core worlds to the Vextar. Our remaining forces are scattered and cannot coordinate effectively. Military defeat is certain unless we can restore our operational capabilities. Trademaster Velkun added his own grim assessment. Economic collapse is accelerating. Supply chains are broken, manufacturing has stopped on most worlds, and interspecies cooperation is failing. We are seeing resource wars between member species for the first time in coalition history. 6 months after humanity's departure, the Galactic Coalition existed only in name. Of the original 47 core worlds, only 4 remained unconquered by the Vextar. Coalition Central itself was under constant attack, its once mighty defenses reduced to a few scattered weapons platforms that fired randomly because their targeting systems no longer functioned. Chancellor Vexhai sat in his damaged office, looking at reports that told the same story over and over. Defeat, collapse, death. The beautiful glass walls of his chamber were now covered with metal plates because the environmental systems could no longer maintain proper atmospheric pressure. The elegant furniture had been replaced with basic military equipment because The manufacturing facilities that created luxury items had been abandoned months ago. How many refugees arrived today? Vexhai asked, without looking up from his datapad. Administrator Morkel, now wearing a military uniform instead of his ceremonial robes, checked the latest numbers. 17,000 survivors from the Kethmori home system. The Vextar consumed the planet yesterday. Vexhai felt something that might have been grief, but he was too exhausted to be certain. Where can we house 17,000 people? Sir, we cannot. The remaining housing facilities are already beyond capacity. We are converting cargo holds and maintenance tunnels into living spaces, but the life support systems cannot handle the increased population. The irony was bitter and obvious. Coalition Central, once the crown jewel of galactic civilization, was now a refugee camp struggling to provide basic survival needs for the people it was supposed to protect. Admiral Zorthek entered the office without waiting for permission. His military bearing remained perfect, but his eyes showed the exhaustion of someone who had been fighting an impossible war for too long. Chancellor, we have received a communication from the outer sensor network. What kind of communication? Sir, it appears to be from a human ship. Vexhai stood up so quickly that he knocked over his chair. A human ship? Are they returning? Sir, the message is not from Coalition space. Our long-range sensors detected the transmission from beyond the galactic rim. It appears to be a response to our broadcast requests for contact. For months, the Coalition had been transmitting desperate messages in all directions, hoping to reach the vanished humans. They had offered everything they could think of: full partnership in the Coalition government, shared leadership of military forces, unlimited research funding, and even territorial concessions. The messages had been sent to every corner of the galaxy, but no responses had ever come. Until now. Play the message, Vexhai ordered. The communication system activated with a crackling sound that indicated the equipment was barely functional. A human voice emerged from the speakers, clear and calm despite the poor audio quality. This is Admiral Choi Seung-min of the Human Independent Fleet, responding to Coalition requests for contact. Vexhai felt something that might have been hope, stirring in his chest. Admiral Choi, this is Chancellor Vexhai of the Galactic Coalition. We urgently request a meeting to discuss mutual assistance during our current crisis. The response came after a delay that suggested the humans were very far away. Chancellor Vexhai, we are aware of your situation. Our monitoring systems have been observing Coalition space since our departure. Then you know we need your help. The Vextar invasion has overwhelmed our defenses. Our systems are failing without human maintenance and expertise. We are prepared to offer full partnership and equal representation in the Coalition government. Another long pause. Chancellor, we must clarify something. We are no longer interested in membership in the Coalition under any terms. Vexhai felt, his hope beginning to fade. Admiral, surely we can negotiate some arrangement. We acknowledge that we made mistakes in our previous relationship with humanity. Mistakes? The human voice carried a tone that Vexhai had never heard before. It was not anger or hatred, but something far worse. Complete indifference. Chancellor, let me explain what you call mistakes. The message continued with devastating precision. For 150 years, humans provided 78% of infrastructure maintenance, 60% of technological innovation, and 85% of strategic planning that kept Coalition civilization functioning. In return, we received minimal political representation, no credit for our contributions, and active contempt from Coalition leadership. Admiral Zorthek stepped forward. Admiral Choi, I commanded Coalition forces during the border wars. Human, tactical expertise saved millions of lives and won victories that would have been impossible otherwise. I personally can attest to the value of human contributions. Admiral Zorthek, we are aware of your record. You were one of the few Coalition officers who treated human personnel with respect. However, Individual fairness does not compensate for systematic oppression. Chancellor Vexhai tried a different approach. Admiral Choi, regardless of past problems, we face an extinction-level threat. The Vextar will consume every living world in this galaxy if they are not stopped. Surely the preservation of billions of lives takes priority over political grievances. The pause was longer this time. When Admiral Choi responded, his voice carried a sadness that made Vexhai understand how deeply humanity had been hurt. Chancellor, you are asking us to save a civilization that spent 150 years proving that our lives did not matter. You ignored our warnings about the Vextar threat. You dismissed our strategic plans. You stole our research and credited it to alien scientists. You treated us as equipment rather than people. Dr. Krelzad, who had been listening from the back of the room, stepped forward. Admiral Choi, this is Dr. Krelzad. I worked closely with human scientists, particularly Dr. Park So-jin. I admit that we did not properly acknowledge human contributions to our research programs. Dr. Krelzad, we know exactly what you did. You systematically took credit for Dr. Park's discoveries, while treating her as a laboratory assistant. When she developed the theoretical framework that could have stopped the Vextar invasion, you presented her work as your own and dismissed her strategic recommendations. Krelzad felt his gills flutter with shame. I was following standard protocols. I did not realize... You did not realize that humans were intelligent beings capable of independent thought and original research. This is precisely why we chose to leave. Vexhai made one final desperate attempt. Admiral Choi, we acknowledge our failures. We offer full political equality, shared leadership, and unlimited resources for human development. We will officially recognize all past human contributions and provide reparations for previous injustices. The response came quickly, as if Admiral Choi had been expecting this offer. Chancellor, your proposal assumes that we want to return to Coalition space under any circumstances. This assumption is incorrect. What do you mean? We mean that humanity has moved beyond the need for Coalition membership. We have established our own civilization in a region of space far from Coalition territory. We have formed alliances with 3 species that you never discovered. Our technology has advanced significantly since our departure. Our society has grown stronger without the burden of supporting people who despised us. Administrator Morkel leaned forward. Are you saying that humans are thriving? We are saying that humans are free. Free to innovate without having our discoveries stolen. Free to contribute to societies that value our work. Free to live without being treated as second-class citizens in our own homes. Vexhai felt a cold realization spreading through his body. You are not coming back. No, Chancellor, we are not. The Coalition had 150 years to recognize human worth. You chose to waste that opportunity. You had countless chances to treat us as equal partners. You chose contempt instead. You had every warning about the consequences of depending on people you refused to respect. You chose to ignore those warnings. The communication continued with the final judgment that Vexhai knew he deserved. You asked for partnership only when you discovered that you could not survive without us. You offered equality only when inequality proved fatal to your civilization. You requested our help only when you realized that you had destroyed yourselves through your own arrogance. Admiral Choi, please, Chancellor, understand this clearly. We do not celebrate your suffering, but we will not rescue you from the consequences of your own choices. You taught us that we were worth nothing to you. We learned that lesson well. Now you must survive on your own merit, as you always claimed you could. The transmission ended with a final message that would be remembered as long as any Coalition records survived. The Human Independent Republic wishes you success in your future endeavors. Do not attempt to contact us again. The communication system went silent. Vexhai stared at the speakers for several minutes, hoping that the humans might reconsider. No further messages came. Admiral Zorthek spoke first. They are gone forever. Vexhai nodded slowly. Yes, and they took with them everything we needed to survive. Outside, the sound of Vextar weapons grew closer as the enemy overwhelmed the last defense positions around Coalition Central. The great building that had once symbolized galactic unity now shook with the impact of alien weapons designed to consume entire worlds. General Mortank entered the office.